started, though, I did want to mention we're going to drop a couple of links into the Teams room. One is for stage 3 demo validation sign up. So I want to make sure that encourage everybody to go ahead and sign up for that. That smart sheet that we're using to do that sign up is going to be open until tomorrow morning. So basically, you sign up, and by Friday, someone from my team, maybe even myself, will be reaching out to you to request a date for when you want to do the stage 3 validations for Umbrella and WSA and SAFE. And then basically you just work back and forth with my GSSO counterpart on when you want to do that WebEx, and they'll get you validated. Same thing, you can send that individual your stage 4 screenshots from the Umbrella lab in the WSA lab, and they can validate you and get your record updated once you do that. So please do click on that link that Lena has posted in the Teams room, and make sure that you get signed up again before tomorrow morning, because we will close that. We will close that smart sheet to registration by that time. If you do miss it, not a big deal. You'll just have to go, find your local channel TSA, and you can schedule it with them. So it's not the end of the world. But we do encourage you, and you don't lose your momentum to go ahead and get signed up, and we'll reach out to you and get that scheduled. Also, you're going to be posting a post-training survey out in the Teams room as well. So please ask that before you log off today, that you do sign off, or excuse me, that you do log into that and provide us feedback. Let us know. This is our first massive mega tour, I guess, mega fire jumper base tour that we've done, given the pandemic, and it looks like, at least for right now, this is the format we're going to be doing for the foreseeable future. So we appreciate any feedback, good or bad, that you can submit, any suggestions, recommendations, etc. So again, appreciate everybody being here today, and we'll go ahead and get started with the final leg of our Umbrella overview. All right, so let's talk about dig into a little bit more about SecureX. So I mentioned earlier, as we were talking about Investigate and the capabilities that come with the SecureX threat response, which is really a subcomponent of the overall SecureX platform. So back at Cisco Live, around Cisco Live timeframe, we introduced this new platform that we have called SecureX. It's really, we talked about orchestration and SOAR type things. We talked about SIM type platforms. It's not really a SIM or a SOAR, but it brings a lot of those capabilities in plus some, right? Because we have what I mentioned earlier, right? With Cisco Threat Response now being folded into it, it's now being called SecureX Threat Response, and all of the different products, not only within our own portfolio, but third-party products that we can pull data into this single dashboard to be able to see what's going on, act on it, whether through a myriad of ways, right? Through the ribbon that I'll talk about here in a minute, through casebooks and all those types of things. And the crux of it is that, right, it makes things much quicker and much more efficient, which really comes down to saving cost, right, within a company, right? If we're not spending hundreds of man hours digging into various types of security investigations, and we're able to, from the information that we're bringing in, or we'll correlate a lot of this data, we're able to act on it through orchestration, and an automated orchestration to boot, right? We're not only making things quicker, we're taking a reduction of, one of the biggest reasons for error and failure, which is the human component, right? And we can take that out. So that's really one of the huge things that SecureX brings to the table. I've talked about the integrations already, right? That we can feed, email security, Umbrella, Firepower, all those different things that are able to feed into the dashboard. Really, again, all of our security products will eventually be there, and many of them are already there today, and we'll additional functionality from a control standpoint. We have within this dashboard, right, it's completely customizable. There's different widgets for each product. I can move them around. I can change the size. I can customize the dashboard if I only want to see certain products. And maybe I have one for threat response, but I have a different one for investigations. You can do that type of customization. Also, the ribbon that I talked about, which you kind of saw a glimpse of earlier on the screenshot, it kind of follows you at the bottom of the screen. So it's there when you're in the SecureX dashboard, but let's say you pivot to the AMP console or you pivot to the Umbrella console for whatever reason, that ribbon follows you along and you can interact with that ribbon. It kind of minimizes to the bottom, but you can expand it up. So here's kind of a little sample screenshot of that. And obviously this is not a SecureX deep dive training, so I'm not going to get too deep into it, but I just want to make sure that everybody is aware that, Umbrella is no exception, and as far as the platform that integrates into SecureX and the power of SecureX that brings to the table. And in case you missed it earlier, the cost, right, is a big driver. It's free. It is literally free, included with every single security product within the Cisco security portfolio, the same as Cisco Threat Response was and still is. SecureX, now called SecureX Threat Response. SecureX as the whole platform is now included as well. So the features and capabilities with that, as I mentioned, right, being able to bring in third-party intelligence, third-party logs through APIs, communicate through another SOAR platform or a SIM platform, and then getting visibility back in from things that are all over the customer's infrastructure. It doesn't matter if it's coming from the network, endpoint, maybe specific applications. And this is going to be huge because today there's a lot of in the customer's environment, you have trouble where the network team doesn't talk to the security team and vice versa, and there's just a lot of finger pointing. But really, this can bring all those organizations together, whether it be the operations side or the SOC. You can bring all that together, and by bringing all the data together from those various devices, and actually make informed decisions and be able to also, again, like I mentioned earlier, act on those using what you see on the dashboard and within the ribbon to be able to pivot to those dashboards of those products when needed. So again, giving you total visibility across all of your platforms, and really just again the time savings that it brings to the table, because I don't have to bring up 3, 4, 5, or 6 different dashboards trying to figure out what's going on. And oh, by the way, I also need to just go out to the internet and do research, like I mentioned earlier, on an IP address or a domain and bring that information in. Right? We can integrate with the Investigate platform as well through those APIs to be able to get that intelligence, bring that into the environment, and again make better informed decisions and ultimately streamline the process that can lead to the orchestration portion of the platform that exists, which again is also free. As you saw there at the bottom, right, included, right, with Umbrella, along with any other Cisco security product. Again, capabilities and benefits. This is kind of a screenshot of it again, so you can see the widgets there on the screen, displaying various information from various products. We see things from AMP endpoints there. We see things from the threat response, like I talked about earlier. You can get firepower, all these different things. And when I mentioned earlier the ribbon, right, because you've got the way that the single sign-on works for the various products, you can quickly pivot into the dashboards of ThreatGrid, AMP endpoints, Umbrella, etc., right? And be able to do that all from here, having that visibility and being able to make, again, more informed decisions from this one centralized location. Specific to Umbrella, I had a few slides on that because obviously that's what we're here for today, and what we can do with it. Now you'll see the screenshot looks similar to what we saw earlier with threat response, because that's exactly what it is, right? This is now the SecureX threat response. So we can go in and we can see, based on what we're seeing from a particular domain, we can dig into those IP addresses. We can pivot into the Umbrella dashboard. If we need to do more investigation, or without going into the dashboard, I can simply click right here where it says block this domain, or maybe I want to view more information about it. I can do that all from here. With the ribbon, so this is a kind of a screenshot of the ribbon that I was talking about that follows you along as you're going through the various dashboards. It stays at the bottom kind of minimized, but you can expand that out. You can see more information. You can actually track an incident or a case and put detailed information within that. You can hand it off to a specific user within that and assign them a particular incident. After you've made the appropriate case notes, maybe you've included a screenshot. You can do all that from within the SecureX dashboard. And within that dashboard, as I mentioned, you've got customizable tiles. So specifically here, we're showing all the ones that are, a lot of the ones that are associated with Umbrella. So I can see here my overall number of requests over a certain period of time. Here it's showing the last 30 days, but I can change that to a week, change to 24 hours, right? Whatever fits best for the particular investigation that I'm doing. And then I can see, blocks by malware. I can see blocks, for the crypto mining going on in my environment. All these different types of things I can see that are going to make me, have either more informed decisions on a manual process that I'm enacting, or plays into the orchestration side of things where we have an automated playbook going on where, hey, we detect a particular device is calling out to a malicious domain, and then we find out that it's also infected with a particular piece of malware through AMP. We can actually take that, make an action that automatically isolates that host so they can no longer communicate with other hosts on the environment until it gets remediated. So that's really it for the SecureX piece. Again, just wanted to make everyone aware of that and the capabilities that Umbrella that includes with that free SecureX subscription. So let's talk about POVs. Why do an Umbrella POV? I think Chris said it pretty well earlier. It's one of the easiest things you'll ever deploy. No hardware to worry about deploying. It's all completely cloud-based. It's just a matter from the DNS standpoint, pointing a customer's resolvers to the Umbrella servers, right? So we do that, and we're protected. And so the thing is, right, you can do that by going out to like umbrella.com. There's a free 14-day trial that's been out there forever. But there's a better tool to do it with, especially use a partner that all of you as partners have access to, and that's something called the Umbrella Partner Console. You heard Chris speak to that earlier as well. I'm going to go into a bit more detail about it. But before I do, right, that other than saying that you can kick off the trials from there right now, you can kick off those trials, and once you kick off those trials and they run for a period of time, you can actually go back in and run a security report, and that's what we're showing here, to be able to look, after the fact, after it's been running for a couple of weeks in the environment, so that you can go back to that customer with a valuable report that says, okay, hey, look, here's what we saw in your environment. Especially, it's not just a bunch of numbers in a spreadsheet, it's actually something that you could take to a director level or above to say, look, these are the types of threats that we're seeing in the environment. In your environment specifically, here's where Umbrella blocked it, and here's basically where you could have been compromised, or you could have been subjected to some type of ransomware attack, right? Or getting everything locked down, all the files locked down in your environment. So it's definitely a quick and easy way to show the value of the product, and I highly recommend using it. And basically, if you have the Umbrella Partner Console that I'm going to talk about here in a minute, you have the capability after a period of days to just go into that console where you're managing all of your trials and click a button and actually have that security report generated for you so that you can take that back to the customer. And of course, as I'm talking about, we've got looking at some of our POVs that various customers have done. Right, what do we see out there? Ransomware, we see phishing attacks, command and control, very high percentages of that the customers don't even realize they have in their environment. So, not only, first of all, are we going to start out with saying, hey, we've sped up your internet traffic because we've got faster DNS response times, but let's talk about the security behind it and how quickly we can, again, show that value. And things like this are going to show up in that same security report. So digging into the Umbrella Partner Console a little bit, you may have heard of it referred to in the past as what we used to call it a PPOV console. but its name has since been changed about a year ago or so to the Umbrella Partner Console. And it's really just an easy way for you guys as partners to have a centralized dashboard where you can go in, kick off a trial. And one of the best parts is, first of all, it's a 21-day trial instead of, if you go up to the main umbrella.com site, you only get a 14-day trial. But what happens after that trial expires? Those 21 days are gone. Well, typically, you have in the past, you would have had to go back to you'd have to go back and reach out to somebody on the Cisco account team, or maybe whoever that you had to be, maybe someone like me or the field engineer, say, hey, can we get this extended? Well, you don't have to do that anymore with Umbrella Partner Console. So you can actually extend it beyond the initial 21-day trial, an additional 21 days. It is in 7-day increments, but you can go out there and click extend trial as many times as you need to, up to an additional 21 days. So basically, you're talking up to 42 days without having to interact with anybody at Cisco, which may be good or bad depending on your experience. But just the point being is that you get, you're in control, and you can extend that trial. And of course, there's exceptions where you need to go beyond that. But typically, our average turnaround time for a trial is about 35 days from start to conversion to a subscription, to a paid subscription. And we see some pretty good stats around that. I'd say typically, on average, it's around 75 to 80% of those trials that get kicked off in the Umbrella Partner Console end up getting converted to actual customer subscriptions. So I think I've kind of covered most of the advantages there. We talked about the 21-day customer trial. We talked about being able to extend it for an additional 21 days. Some other controls that you have within that is you can request administrative access to a customer's trial. So when they kick it off, you can actually, when you put in the customer information, you can check a box that sends an email to the administrator and that customer that says, hey, please allow me, John Smith, the partner, to have admin access to your console, because you want to be there kind of by their side to either help them out from a technical standpoint or to be able to show them from a reporting standpoint what they're seeing in their environment and the customer's environment, and how they can make sure that they're showing that value to their customer. Also, it's not listed here, but there's also something we have that's called a nurture campaign. So basically, it's kind of an email type campaign that sends an email on a periodic basis to the customer to say, hey, we noticed you signed up for Umbrella, but you haven't added any, you haven't pointed your DNS to us yet. We're not seeing any traffic from you. Or, hey, we're seeing traffic, but you don't have any blocking policies, whatever, right? There's little things to kind of remind them. And then, of course, as they get towards the end of their trial, you're like, hey, we hope you enjoyed the trial. Your trial will expire soon. So it kind of is a reminder. So you can choose to use that or not use that tool, but it is something that's available from within the Umbrella Partner Console. And then, of course, I mentioned the reporting, right? There's the detailed report that I kind of you saw a screenshot of earlier, but there's also a higher level overview report that you might that you could use just to get a again a high level overview to say, hey, look, we see malware, we see crypto mining. Let's dig into this a little bit more and go into your detailed reporting and see what's going on in the environment. So for anybody that does have the Umbrella Partner Console, if you don't have it already, you've been able to kick off trials so far using the either the old legacy Umbrella packages, Professional Insights platform, or the new SIG DNS Essentials and the DNS Essentials or the DNS Advantage. However, you have not been able to do the SIG POV trials. That is now changed. Starting last week, actually, we kicked off a campaign for partners to be able to add SIG Essentials to their POV, to their UPC console. So the question is, well, first let me answer the first question. How do you get access to Umbrella Partner Console if you don't have it at all? It's as simple as opening up a case with partner help, and you go through some, and after you've completed some basic training that we have out on Sales Connect, basically go through a couple of VODs, and once you do that, you can go to open up a case with partner help, and you'll get access to the Umbrella Partner Console. Now, if you already have that, but you still want access to SIG Essentials package, that has now become available. You can do that now. There's some additional training required, and the best part of it is, if you're here, you are in part of that. Half the training you've already completed it because you've been through this umbrella SIG overview today. So I'll put that up here as far as what the requirements are, and you can see here on the right-hand side. Basically, it's for the cloud security competency area that we're here for today. If you've completed, you complete stage 2, and then there's a briefcase out on Sales Connect that is basically this slide deck, and soon to be today's recording. That'll be out there, and once you do that, there's a COLT exam at the end of it. You take the COLT exam, and you provide that passing score and to Cisco, and you will get the SIG Essentials package added to your Umbrella Partner Console. However, if you already have someone on staff, or you specifically have already completed through stage 4 of the Cloud Security Fire Jumper track that we're here for today, or if you do finish it, then you are automatically qualified for that. You just provide that proof to Cisco, and you get access to get the SIG Essentials package in your Umbrella Partner Console. So as you can see here, once you're done with it, you just send an email to the email address on the screen or on this slide, and you get access to that. So it's definitely a very beneficial tool, again, for you guys as partners to have in your toolbox. So if you haven't already, and I know we have had definitely a slew of partners that have already gotten this added to their Umbrella Partner Consoles, please do it. As you've seen today, the SIG Essentials package and the SIG capabilities have quite a bit to offer to your customers. Speaking of, let's talk about the packages and the licensing as it stands today. So again, the previous packages that you've seen in the past, they still exist, but they are considered legacy, and I do see those being sunset sometime. Probably, I would guess, probably by the end of this financial year that we've just kicked off at Cisco. I don't have any guaranteed dates on that, but just my own personal thoughts. However, so where we do stand today, right, we have the DNS Security Essentials package. It's basically replaced the professional package. And then as we get into insights and platform, that pretty much gets you into the DNS Security Advantage. And then we have the SIG Essentials package that's now available, and that hopefully you guys will get added to your UPCs to be able to do POV trials. So with that comes the secure web gateway capabilities, as well as cloud delivered firewall and the CASB functionality. And as you can see, it kind of tiers down here with the different packages. So you can see that if you've got SIG Essentials, and you get obviously everything that comes with that, plus everything below. So you get that Investigate console, plus the on-demand enrichment API that I was talking about. That's actually included with DNS Security Advantage and above. And just to speak a little bit to roadmap as well, probably in the second half of our FY21, we're looking at adding an additional SIG package, which will be called SIG Advantage. That will mainly be featuring the layer 7 capabilities that we talked about earlier on the roadmap for the cloud delivered firewall. Another big change that you may have noticed too between these packages and the previous packages, right? Before you had to buy support if you wanted to go beyond the basic support, which was included and was just email based. Now we've got 24/7 phone support across the board for all of the packages. And the way to access that once you have these packages is within the dashboard. There'll be a phone number that can be contacted for something. These mainly, the last few slides I've got here really are around just reference for the packages. I have a lot of partners that want to know, comparatively speaking, what's included or what is covered under the new SIG features and capabilities with the various packages. So again, I'm not going to read through all this, but just to highlight, right on the left-hand side, we've got the wireless LAN and the EDU packaging, which is still available, but just be aware that there are no SIG components that are included in those. So there's no EDU, SIG for EDU. There's no plans to have such a package, at least that I'm aware of at this time. So if you've got customers that are looking to still utilize that type of licensing structure, where we get a certain number of students for free, and that's still available, but just be aware it does not include the SIG features. If they want those SIG features and capabilities, those are going to have to be purchased, including everybody as far as the number of licensed users. Second screen here, just more information in the same chart, just specific as those features touch on for user attribution, management, log reporting, etc. And this is a little bit smaller. I apologize that it is, but this is actually a PDF document that's out there available to you guys as partners on Sales Connect. It kind of shows, hey, what's the difference? I've got a customer today that just got, an Insights package. How does that compare with DNS Essentials? How does that compare with DNS Advantage? This is really helpful to kind of be able to tell you, make a better decision and a more informed decision based on those customers' needs to see where it makes sense that maybe it's very likely that they're going to want to upgrade their Insights to move up to DNS Advantage just because of the additional features and capabilities that they'll get. But again, you can make that decision for yourself based on what you see here. So just to close it all out, summarizing Umbrella, obviously it's come quite a long way since the acquisition into Cisco. It's been almost, I think, around 4 years now. We've added a lot of features, a lot of capabilities. We've added SIG and everything that, all the different components of that. But still, again, easiest to deploy, one of the fastest things you can deploy. And really, honestly, because of the intelligence that we bring behind it with Talos, one of the most secure as well. So it's an easy conversation to have from that standpoint, and just making sure that we don't forget the various features that are within it that make up Cisco Umbrella. It's not just the DNS security layer anymore. We're now adding those capabilities, CASB, Secure Web Gateway, and Cloud Delivery Firewall as well. And of course, right, customer-wise, we have thousands and thousands and thousands of customers in all of the various verticals that use Umbrella every single day. Not to mention the number of small personal users, even like me here at home. I think Chris says he uses it at home with his wife. And, kids, my kids here at home. So across the board, it's just it's an additional layer of security, and it's only gotten better from an efficacy and a feature and functionality standpoint. So some additional resources. Again, you guys have access to this slide deck out in the Sales Connect briefcase that I showed at the beginning of the class today. But here's a number of resources that are available to you, so you can go out and have better informed conversations with your customers. So that's it for the Umbrella and SIG overview. Really appreciate your time for this. And then now we are going to move on, and Ken is going to come back in and do an overview of CloudLock, our CASB solution.
Yep. All right.
Stop sharing.
Can you toss me the ball?
I sure will.
There we go. All right. All right, so I'm going to do a high-level overview of CloudLock. And we're in the home stretch, guys. We've got this in WSA. I will try to get through this fairly quickly because some of it you actually have seen before, because the reasons are kind of the same. Again, we look at the perimeter. Used to basically a headquarters attached directly to branch offices. Everybody worked in an office. People weren't really as remote as they are today. And, that's all changed. And the challenges also remain the same, but now as we're moving further and further out into the cloud with everything, we have to start thinking about things a lot differently than we thought about them before. So right now, the big challenges that we see from a cloud perspective are users, data, and applications. Users aren't going away. They're our biggest culprit. We all know that. We're all going to do bad things and make mistakes and do stuff like that. We've always needed to protect our data, but now we've got more applications out there than ever, and that becomes a big part of the challenge, is how are we going to address helping with these applications and things, while they're out in the cloud. So we've spent a lot of the day talking about Umbrella and its capabilities. Sorry. And now what we're going to do is we're going to start talking a little bit about how adding CloudLock to that story really helps tighten everything down out in the cloud. So if you're not familiar with the term CASB, it stands for Cloud Access Security Broker. And really it's designed to protect these three things: users, data, and applications, specifically out in the cloud. So when we start thinking about, as folks are migrating out more and more to the cloud, some good questions to have. This is a good reference slide. Really, it's understanding kind of who, what, where, and when. Who's accessing my applications and my data? What tools are they using to get there? So what applications are they using? What do I do, and how do I know if something has been compromised? How am I keeping my data secure in the cloud? Is it being protected? Is it being shared properly? Do I have critical data or intellectual property that's out in the cloud but isn't being secured properly so that anybody could theoretically share it with anybody else? And then finally, as we get more into the applications, do I have control and visibility into the apps that are being used to access that data? Now, you hear a lot of people talking about software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, and basically each one takes in more. It's a matter of what's being hosted in the cloud. So SaaS is about people and data. Platform adds application. You get the idea. I personally had a little hard time kind of referencing all this, so I prefer to understand it as pizza as a service. And when you really think about it, it's who does what. Obviously, if it's a homemade pizza, you're doing everything yourself. Infrastructure as a purchase is a service. That's you're going to the store, buying a pizza, and just basically making the pizza, heating it up. You work your way to the right. Software as a service, where everything is done kind of out there, that's dining out. So you get the idea. Daniel showed this slide earlier too, and really we've got so many challenges that we're facing in the security realm of dealing with the issues at hand, dealing with visibility. How do we remediate? Customers don't have the security specialization on staff like they would want. Dealing with multiple platforms, all this kind of stuff. So as we get into what we want to protect, we're going to start with our users and our cloud users. And what this is basically we need to understand who is out there and where they are. So, we've got applications all over the place, so really it doesn't matter where people are anymore. But if Chris is in Chicago at 12:18 p.m. and then 5 minutes later he's in Uzbekistan, that's probably an issue. And if I don't have visibility into that and seeing that account has been compromised, I have no idea. So we've got to start getting more visibility into where our users are, what they're doing, how they're doing it. CloudLock gives us that ability. It also gives us some unique ability to understand if somebody's on a VPN, because for all of us here at Cisco, if we're on the VPN, it doesn't matter where we are. We all look like we're in Northern California. So we can build a policy around that so that if you're based in Boston and you're looking like you're from Northern Cal, yep, odds are very good that you've turned on your VPN. Now, when we start getting into all of this, it's kind of like looking for a needle in a haystack. And that's a challenge in of itself. And what we need to do is we need better tools to figure out how we're going to find that needle. And there's a couple of ways of doing that. You may have, I don't know if you've seen Mythbusters, but their very first episode was looking for a needle in a haystack. And there's two ways to do it. Burn the haystack down, and the only thing that'll be left is the needle. Or get a really big magnet and pull out the needle from the haystack, and you're still keeping your hay, which is your intellectual property or your devices or your people. So we're trying to do that. So when we start getting into the weeds of all the threats that are out there, what users are doing. We're really trying to figure out and hone in on what the actual threats are. There's a lot of stuff that's out there that might look like a threat, but it's just noise. So what we need to do is we've got to really hone in on where the threats are coming from. Again, the biggest culprit is always the users. So when you look at the information on here, what we see a lot is that there is a tremendous amount of credentials that are compromised. So if I see somebody logging in and having a lot of failed login attempts, there's a pretty good chance that that machine has been compromised. Somebody's got their login but doesn't have their password. So we need to make sure that we're identifying that as well, so that when the account is compromised, we can shut it off or at least prevent it from getting access to any of our intellectual property. Now, when we start getting into the data, it's a couple of different things. It's who's accessing the data, how are they accessing it, and really how is it being exposed. So think about this. We're actually seeing hospitals and doctors now putting HIPAA information into the cloud. And that information can include social security numbers, medical information, the list goes on. Now imagine if you put that out into a cloud instance for just cloud storage like Box or Dropbox or something like that, and you created that folder and left it public. Well, that would be bad. So the idea here is we've got to build policy around these things to help ensure that even though somebody may do something that is bad, but it was not necessarily malicious, we want to make sure we're adding those layers in. So users aren't always bad, even though we see a number like this where 25% of users are violating policies. A small number of those are actually, very small number, are doing it intentionally. So we're trying to make sure that we've put the protection in place so that if somebody does make a mistake, we're able to deal with that. And that's what's really important. So when you look at these kinds of numbers, it can get scary really, really fast. More than 24,000 files per organization is accessible. Okay, well, maybe that's not a big deal. But what if one or even two of those files, three of those files have social security information or payroll information or something like that? Now we're dealing with something that's really scary. And the other side of this is people are accessing this stuff using other credentials than their corporate ones because the companies generally they're not aware. So they're allowing people to access with creds other than ones that they know to be more secure. So these are the things that CloudLock is really focused on trying to do. And we try to make it easy, like we've been kind of talking about all day, trying to make things easy. So we have a whole bunch of policies that are kind of in the can that you can use. You can edit these policies, you can create custom ones, but we've got about 70 predefined policies that fall into these 5 buckets of PII, education, PCI, PHI, all that kind of stuff. So you can put those in there and start building and adding that protection a lot faster than you might otherwise be able to do because we've kind of done some of the heavy lifting for you. All right, so let's get into some of the cloud application side of things. And this is really where we're starting to deal with something like OAuth. And again, OAuth isn't necessarily bad, but it's allowing you're logging in and it's saying this application would like to get access to your contacts, to your camera, to whatever it is. Not really something I'm comfortable with, probably something you're not comfortable with either, but we're security guys and girls, so we want to make sure that the people that aren't as familiar with security are being protected from themselves. If you remember back in the day of Pokemon Go, when people signed up, it gave their makers of Pokemon Go access to everything. There's no reason for that, but they got it, and that's basically what OAuth does. So in this case, most of us have probably used DocuSign. So you log in, and it says, I want to manage and view your email addresses, your calendars, your contacts, all this stuff. No, I just want to sign my document. Leave me alone. Don't do any of the other stuff. I don't want to allow some third party to do that. And like I said, it's not that OAuth is necessarily bad, but OAuth is everywhere. So just a couple of years ago, there was 5,000-ish applications. Now we're north of 300,000. So it's not, it's more prevalent than it's ever been, and people are still providing access to things that they shouldn't. We're also quick to just go, yeah, accept, let me get to whatever it is that I want to get to. We need to be aware of that. So, and these applications, again, not all bad, but some certainly are, and some are riskier than others. And when you start seeing those numbers of applications out there that are at high risk, if we say there's 25 out there, 25%, that's 75,000 applications out of the 300,000 that we mentioned. That's a huge number. So what CloudLock does is it gives us visibility. And this screen should look fairly familiar because this was taken from CloudLock and integrated into Umbrella. So now what we have is visibility into every application that is being used on our network, or both on and off. Anytime there's activity trying to get to our cloud services, on-prem, whatever it is, we can see every application and we can identify whether they're high risk, medium risk, low risk, and start just making decisions very quickly on what applications we want to allow access to our data. So like I said, we're really looking at this from these three different perspectives: users, data, and applications. And that's what we're trying to control. So we want to make sure the users only can get access to what they're supposed to and the way they're supposed to do it. We're trying to protect our data so that, and it may be, like I said, not just about protecting the data from being accessed, but actually even going as far as protecting what data can be put out there. So I could build a policy that says, hey, I don't want to allow credit card information into Salesforce. CloudLock can actually look at that and even do a retrospective analysis and say, hey, a year ago, somebody put in credit card data into Salesforce. And being able to be notified about that and being able to block that data from being accessed is a big part of what CloudLock does. And then finally, we get into the applications, things like shadow IT, those applications that we may not want on our network to accessing the data that we're looking at as so critical. Now, CloudLock is a little different than some of the other CASB solutions out there because there's no agent. Everything is API driven. So every application that CloudLock can work with has a very tight API integration so that we're able to do that retrospective analysis that I talked about. We're able to look near real time and see things that are going on very, very quickly, whether you're on a corporate machine, a personal device, whatever network you're on. It doesn't matter where you are, as long as you're trying to access that data. If we know any information about it, we can kind of ensure what kind of level of protection that you get. Now we look at the architecture, again, all API driven. So we've got kind of this nice user front end that helps us build our policies. And what we do is we decide kind of what we want the policy to do, which applications they're going to affect, and what action we want to take based on the policy. So we can have a policy that says, again, we don't want to allow anybody to access Dropbox for uploading data. It's download only. And if they try to upload, they'll get blocked. Or if you don't want to put in social security numbers into an Excel file that you're going to put up into the cloud, we actually can look in, and CloudLock can see that and see that there is data that violates policy. So once you've built your policy, you can decide what you actually want to have happen. Do you just want to be notified? Do you actually want to take an action? Do you want to send an email? Whatever it is. Because of this tight integration with the APIs, we can take literally any action that you need us to take with that particular policy violation. So we've talked about this in kind of a roundabout way, and it's one of the interesting things that Cisco has done over the last few years, is really gone from more of a proprietary company to being very open. So it's a simple, open, automated that we keep talking about. And that's really, when you look at a lot of the stuff we've talked about today with Umbrella, with SecureX, and with threat response, and now with CloudLock, and in a minute we're going to talk about the WSA. Got to be simple. So when we start wrapping up, what makes CloudLock so cool is it's cloud native. That means you don't have to worry about doing updates or anything like that. When you create a policy, it's pushed out instantly. It integrates with a lot of different parts of the Cisco solution. We talked about those integrations specifically with Umbrella today. Our intelligence, the integration and feeds that we get from Talos, as well as other security threat feeds. For those of you in government, we're one of 2 CASB vendors that's FedRAMP certified. And then again, it's a bit marketing, 700 different customers, 750,000 users. It's probably bigger than that now. So what we do is, in this case, for this particular case study, what we see is a customer that's got 16,000 users, 29 million files. And what we saw was that they had 650,000 public exposures, and that included design docs, patents, and engineering code. So what we were able to do is build those policies, get them implemented very quickly, and start protecting those exposures. And what we saw was an ROI of 62% in the first day. So you get the idea. What we've done is it allows us to do very, very quickly, like I said, installed in less than 10 minutes. Because it's cloud-based, you don't have any hardware or anything like that. We integrate with a lot of the big cloud solutions that are out there, and we give you the ability to take different actions based on that. And finally, we've tried to make it simple by giving you a bunch of the most common policies so that you can get those up and running very, very quickly. And with that, I am going to stop sharing and hand it back over to Chris so he can talk to you about the WSA. Chris, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ken. 1 second as I pull up my slides. Alrighty, so I know that we are on the home stretch, as Ken said earlier, and I'm going to provide a overview of the WSA, Web Security Appliance. With that, we'll move on. So here's the agenda. I know it seems like there's a lot on this agenda, but we're going to really kind of move to this relatively quickly, just due to the nature of everything that we've already spoken about with Umbrella and some of the CASB with CloudLock. So customer challenges, again, as we look at, as we think about the threat landscapes, we understand that email is number one, but we know that web is in the number 2 spot. And as we look at the evolution of the modern web consumption, we used to see just the web traffic coming from browsers, whether that's going to be Firefox or Chrome or something along those lines. But now we know that there's different applications that are running out there. There are definitely reaching out to the web, a lot of streaming apps that are going on, whether that's YouTube, Netflix, Amazon Prime, different things like that. There's a big craze with social media, whether that's going to be utilizing LinkedIn, TikTok, Snapchat, Facebook, and then different web applications, whether that's Outlook and Gmail, And then you can see e-commerce on here, Amazon Prime, eBay, and a whole host of other different applications that we're using, such as WebEx. And so we want to be able to have a layer of protection for these. I know that a lot of things are moving to cloud, but there still are definitely a lot of use cases for having a on-prem appliance. When we're looking at the makeup of a web page, there's a wide variety of different options here. Right now, we have a illustration of the New York Times on this page. But as we step through this, we know that there's so many different elements of this particular page. And with the WSA, that's something that we can scan through. We see that this is made up of Flash. We have Java. We have images that are on there, and PDF files, different scripts that may be running in the background, executables, and even Silverlight for that web page. And so what we are able to do is we're able to use the dynamic content analysis of that web page, and we're able to decipher each element, look at each element that makes up that page to see if there's something that is nefarious out there, any kind of potential threats. And based off of that, we're able to block that portion of that page and still allow users to access the safe components of that particular page. So again, just being able to look at those elements and being able to decipher what's good and what's not. Looking at today's web attack vector, looking at web traffic, this slide builds out. I'll just go ahead and build this out. We realize that web traffic, there's a strong push for utilizing 443, so HTTPS traffic as opposed to HTTP. We're realizing that, as you can see here from the statistics that we have, we're 82% of malware is distributed amongst legitimate sites. 85% of companies with effective browsers. We know that a lot of end users companies don't always do patching for the systems, and that we can clearly see that with the vulnerabilities. This is from 2015, 2016, but vulnerabilities are always out there, and so there's a wide variety of threat actors that are leveraging these vulnerabilities to infiltrate into infrastructures and to get a lot of or do anything kind of nefarious within this. We're also seeing TLS 1.3 being pretty prevalent. This is just pulling a snapshot from the script that was ran in one of the TME's lab environment. We're just kind of able to see just the level of encryption and the distribution of these various types of encryption over time. So again, web is huge. So moving on to the web security solution aspect of things. Now we're looking at what the WSA actually provides, and we have anytime you're hearing Cisco, we're always talking about the integration pieces, and WSA is part of the integration with the rest of our security architecture, that end-to-end architecture. You're going to get that strong, effective protection. Granular controls, sort of similar to what we're seeing, a little bit more granular than what you can with Umbrella currently. Flexible deployments, whether it's going to be a physical appliance or a virtual appliance or a combination of the two. And then you're also going to be able to get that detailed reporting to fully understand what's happening, what's taking place within that environment itself. So I won't walk through this. I know this is a bit of an eye chart, but this is really just speaking to the various engines that we have that is working in our WSA. And why we have that effective results when utilizing our WSA, and why it's extremely effective by being able to look at different facets of that web traffic that's flowing through, and being able to do the decryption for traffic and see if there's anything that's nefarious in there. Being able to do the URL filtering, being able to have control over different applications and visibility, and providing control over that. Utilizing AMP. The AMP everywhere story is prevalent. Being able to see what files are coming in, check the Charleston 56 of that particular, see if it's something that's clean or malicious, or if it's unknown. If it's unknown, we'll send it up to threat create for further analysis. And then this bottom right, you're going to see just the level of integration, where information is being sent, where we're integrating with the Stealth Watch, CTR or Cisco threat response, or SecureX threat response, and this behavior analytics for CTA. And we'll talk a little bit more about CTA, and then a cloud lock piece that Ken just highlighted. And then we also have the ability to integrate with third-party integrations. So whether you're utilizing video caching, utilizing SIMs in the environment, doing SSL decryption, DLP, you're able to integrate that with utilizing ICAP. So again, there's so many different pieces within the WSA that really make it very effective for our customers. And just moving right along with the agenda, now we're looking at just a strong, effective protection aspect of this. And I won't spend too much time on this because Ken went over this a little bit earlier. But again, the power of Talos, just the amount of information that we're able to see, the amount of blocks that we're able to do, the web reputation, looking at the cognitive threat analytics, being able to utilize multiple antivirus scanning engines. So, you know, the more there, the more effective that's going to be, leveraging the advanced malware protection. And then the layer 4 traffic monitoring. Not all traffic is going to flow over 80 and 443. So we want to have different mechanisms that's going to be able to help safeguard against those different things like that. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into that a little bit later in the presentation. But again, these are the things that are really adding value for the product and also our customers. So we're looking at web reputation, right? We're thinking about a credit score. If you're thinking somewhere with this web reputation, you're going to get somewhere between a -10 to +10, depending upon where you land. You're going to get a rating for that, whether it's going to be from poor, questionable, neutral, favorable, or a trusted website. So we're looking at a lot of data, metadata for this, and we're able to garner a lot about that and assign that score to it. So for this, we're looking at who it is. We're now also looking at the location as to where it is, looking at the IP address to see what the information we know about that. And then we're also looking at how long was it the domain register. And as we see each piece that we're continuously adding on, that threat score is starting to lower and lower and lower. So for this particular thing, it's going to have a very poor reputation score. So we're going to block that connection to this. All right, and then just looking at enhanced threat URL categories. This is just a quick snapshot of, again, the different threat categories that we have. Websites are able to fit into multiple categories depending upon the website, depending upon the nature of that site. So you are able to utilize these in your policies to make sure that, again, end users aren't going to any malicious sites or maybe it's not sites that you don't want them using. Maybe you don't want them using Netflix or something along that lines, just because you want to make sure that the bandwidth that you have is going to be for your critical applications and business critical applications there. So you're able to save that bandwidth. And this is just kind of looking at top threat scores, blocked by web reputation scores. As we're looking at this aspect of here, this is where we're looking at being able to block malware threats. Again, this is going to be being able to leverage multiple antivirus scanning engines, whether it's utilizing the WebRoot, Sophos, or McAfee. You're going to, again, as you have more engines, you're going to get more additional coverage for that. You're also able to leverage the advanced malware protection to be able to, again, look at files as they're coming in. And then with this, we always want to make sure that when we're thinking about antivirus engines and different things like that, we know that it needs to keep the signatures up to date. And so that's something that we're constantly doing. We're keeping those signatures up to date so that we're getting the latest and greatest information. So we're able to help safeguard our customers from that. And with that, we're providing high performance for being able to stream. So looking at this and kind of digging a little bit deeper into the layer 4 traffic monitoring, you're able to block affected hosts from phone activity. So with the WSA, we're able to detect road traffic across all network ports and stop malware that's attempting to bypass port 80. Again, we see different applications that are leveraging access to the web, and they're not always utilizing the standard port 80 or 443. So if we have in this example, if we have an internal client that's infected with malware and they're attempting to call back home, we're able to, and they're not using that standard 80 port, we are able to actually prevent that home activity from going out of the corporate network. So you're being able to, again, provide that additional layer of protection there. So with that, I was also having a conversation with Daniel about this, and ASC's leveraged this particular feature functionality previously.
Yeah, I was just going to speak on it for a bit. The value of the layer 4 traffic monitoring. As somebody who came from the customer side and actually deployed this in multiple environments for customers that I work with, really saw the value, and obviously it's great. WSA, you can proxy, a limited number of ports, right? You can do standard 80 and 443, but you could also do 8080 and 8443 if you're doing decrypt, and maybe a few other ports. But you're still going to miss some things, and the truth, or the truth of it all is that there's going to be malicious software out there that's going to use non-standard ports, and chances are it's not going to be one that's going to be proxy. So what do you do with that traffic, and how do you protect it? Protect your network from it. So a great way to do it is with the WSA and having this L4TM port on the back. You can actually use either like a span port off of a switch or off of like a tap, and be able to actually take that traffic and ingest it. Where you're seeing everything that's going off the edge, regardless of the port it's on, and be able to, if it's TCP traffic, you can send back a TCP reset if it finds out that it's something that's potentially malicious, if it's UDP traffic, it sends back a UDP unreachable, right? Basically, right? So with that, you're not getting a block page or what have you, but point is that nefarious communication is not, or malicious communication is not going out and not getting out of the network if you've got it in the blocking mode. Now, just as an FYI, there is basically a monitoring mode that you can put it in if you're a little more risk averse, but your customer's a little more risk averse, but they actually want to see this traffic, where they can do a further investigation if they see it coming across, where they may not necessarily actually block it. You can have it show up in the reports and see that there. So it's definitely a valuable feature. I don't think it's talked about enough, but I think it's definitely important to address here, and I'll make sure that you guys have a use case for that.
Thanks, Dave. So we've talked about AMP and how that all works, so I won't really bore you all with that. Again, we're looking at the SHA values and seeing if it's malicious or not. If it's something we haven't seen before, we're going to sandbox that, and we're going to get that disposition back from ThreatCred. If a nice thing about AMP is that we're constantly tracking the disposition of files. So if something we thought was clean turns out to be something malicious, we have that file retrospective. So we're going to give you an alert of that, and you can go in and take the necessary steps to remove that file. Also kind of important if you're running the for endpoint client, if you have that, you'll be able to quarantine that utilizing. So that everywhere story is very powerful. Daniel talked about SecureX when we were talking about Umbrella SIG. WSA is one of the solutions that is able to be tied into SecureX. So yes, you are able to do any further analysis as to what's going on in the environment. So you do have that data to kind of pivot, whether you're looking at domain names, URLs, destination IPs, looking for file names. You're able to leverage that information within the WSA and take the necessary steps to help mitigate whatever observable you're looking into, and understanding that your environment is safe. if you've seen that level of information. So again, a very, very powerful tool that leverages the APIs to talk to our security portfolio. So looking at the cognitive threat analytics, what we're doing here is you kind of think of it like if you're familiar with Stealth Watch and how that works, where it gets a baseline understanding of what's happening in a network. Where with the WSA, we're looking at logs, and based off of those logs, we're able to build out a model as to what traffic looks like. We're able to utilize machine learning to really dig deep into that, as we know that everything we can't put a client on. So being able to have that CTA logs, web traffic, whether that's coming from third-party vendors as well, we're able to integrate that, and we're able to utilize the information to reduce time to discovery for anything that's trying to spread within the environment, seeing if something is out of the norm, and then this is a different level of security. We're able to utilize that machine learning and analytics to learn more about what we see and being able to adapt that over time. And then, so we really are able to have that anomaly detection from that standpoint. So the way we're looking at this with WSA and CTA, on the left, we're seeing that we're taking in 10 billion requests per day. We're walking through different phases, different tiers of CTA, where that first layer is looking at anomaly detection, trust modeling, again, building that baseline as to what looks normal for your particular environment. And then at that second phase, and once we look at that and get that baseline, we're looking at event classification and entity modeling, and just being able to understand what's normal and what's not normal, and if anything kind of deviates that, we're able to make alerts of that. So utilizing these different three phases, we are able to cut down the number of incidents per day to about 1,000. And again, this is going to be dependent upon the environment and the amount of logs that we're seeing. But again, we're able to help reduce the amount of time that needs to be taken for investigating of different events that are taking place within that environment. So when we're thinking about CTA, there are two terms that are associated. We have confirmed threats, 100% confirmed breaches. We are able to drill down into and get further analysis as to what's happening with this particular sample, who it reached out to. It gives a summary as to when this happened, what's happening, and when this actually took place in that environment. And so with that, you can utilize that for remediation from that standpoint. The other aspect that we have is going to be detected threats. So these are unique threats for individuals. And again, you're going to be able to get that contextual information from here to kind of do any kind of forensic analysis. And as you can see here, there's a map that really shows you all of the threat activities, whether it's showing you the domains that it's connecting to, any of the IPs, and any of the different countries and different things that it's reaching out, and different autonomous systems in there, so that, again, you're able to garner a better understanding of what's going on with this particular detected threat within the environment, and again, take the appropriate steps to remediate that. When you're speaking of web, something that commonly comes up is TLS 1.3. And as we see by the statement on this, the WSA is the only Cisco security product that can decrypt TLS 1.3. And with this is typically with our other devices, we're going to downgrade that to 1.2 and expect that. But with the WSA, we don't need to downgrade that down to version 1.2, and that's something that we're able to leverage with WSA version 12. So looking at granular control, inbound, outbound. This is something that I really covered when I talked about the pipeline. So again, you're able to, from the inbound controls, just looking at things as far as URL categories, being able to control things as far as
Hey everyone, we're trying to get the audio back, so just bear with us for a few minutes and we'll get it back on here for you.
Sorry about that. I feel like my phone realized that we were close to being done. So I'm going to share a PowerPoint again, and can you all see my slides?
It's trying to come up. Not yet.
So
there it goes. Now we got the inbound, outbound controls.
all right. So with that, I was just saying that with the inbound controls and outbound controls, you want to be able to control what's going in and what's flowing out. Being able to put really limits on what's happening, whether it's utilizing URL categories, different file types, and being able to specify what size of the downloads is appropriate. Being able to do bandwidth control. Again, you want to make sure that your business critical applications are not fighting for resources with those that are maybe on the network that are streaming, whether that's again Netflix or Hulu or whatever the case may be. We're also able to pull in external feeds as well, so that you're able to build policies around that, making sure you're maybe excluding different things that you don't want to do SSL decryption for. From an outbound side of things, again, we're able to integrate with external DLPs for additional control over your traffic. We can do web traffic tap, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that is. And then advanced malware protection. Again, you want to make sure that you're not uploading malware out there into the web and different things like that. So our URL categories are powered by Telos. I'll let this build out. We have over 85 categories. Some URLs are going to fit into multiple categories. Languages, we have 30 plus languages that we are able to leverage, so it is pretty flexible in that standpoint. And again, constantly updating the URL database every 5 minutes, so we are able to stay up to date with that. If there is a URL category that fits into multiple categories, we will take the most restrictive setting that you have applied for that particular category. So just looking at the application visibility control, you can see that we have hundreds of applications that are available for creating policies around. We can really drill down and get more granular control over that. So if we want to pick on Facebook, we don't want to allow file uploads, or you don't want to allow postings. You're able to do that. And the other flip side of that is if we want to do things around bandwidth controls, we're able to put bandwidth controls here. As we can see, we're extremely reducing the streaming capabilities and the Facebook activities here to 256K for Facebook and 128K for streaming services. So again, making sure that the pipeline isn't being bogged down by a lot of applications that shouldn't be necessarily running within the environment. This just, again, continues to highlight the level of control and granularity that we have here. If you don't want certain file types, maybe executables, you don't want running in there, you have the ability to block that. We do have the ability to inspect archives, just to make sure that nothing's going on in there. You can allow it, or you can block it, or you can have that deep packet inspection on there to make sure not everything's okay. And then we're able to put that max download size as well. So again, you're able to put some quality control in place for the actual environment itself. This is just looking at the custom and external URL categories. We are able to pull in O365 feeds, so that you are able to pull that information in there and have the latest and greatest as far as IP addresses. We realize that, again, everything moving to the cloud, there are so many different customers that are leveraging O365, so that is something that you can do. You can have your Cisco feeds, or if you like to do your own threat hunting and you built out something locally, we're also able to ingest that information as well. Whether you're utilizing a lot of different websites and pulling that in, you're able to build out IP addresses or domains and websites and use that within your policy. Use that within your policies, and there's no limit on local feeds. So as much as you feed it is just as much as we can consume. So you are able to do that. So you have that flexibility from that standpoint. Our outbound malware scanning. Again, we want to make sure that we aren't uploading anything malicious to the cloud, whether it's utilizing Dropbox, utilizing Gmail or Facebook or something along that lines. So we do have the different detection engines that we are able to leverage for that, whether that's using the Sophos AV, WebRoot, antivirus, and being able to use this together, and also utilizing AMP as well for scanning the outbound. Data loss, talking to customers, we know that this is something that's extremely important. This is something that we covered when we talked about CloudLock with Ken, and just being able to make sure pertinent data isn't being shared like it shouldn't be, with the Pokemon Go example and different things like that. So with the WSA, we are able to do some basic DLP capabilities. So rules like any Excel files or anything along that lines shouldn't be uploaded. But we are able to integrate with third parties utilizing ICAT protocol. And we know that a lot of customers have their enterprise DLP, and so we are able to integrate that for that to provide even more granular control. So we want to risk or reduce the risk of sensitive information leaks out there. This is looking at the web traffic tab. So again, you could have multiple devices that are capable of decrypting traffic, but with the WSA, if you have that sitting on the edge there, or in a data center, or wherever you have that, you can decrypt that at the WSA, and you have the ability, since it's decrypted, you can send that to multiple solutions that you have in your environment. So if you have your firewall that's running IPS or AMP or whatever, you have that ability to send that there, and is able to run through that decrypted information and make any necessary, maybe drop the traffic if there's something malicious in there. If it's clean, we can pass it through, and it can hit to its it can make it to the endpoint within the environment. So you have that flexibility to utilize that decrypted traffic depending upon the solutions that you have within the network. So moving right along to reporting. There's a couple different options for reporting. We have the Unbox Manager. If you're running one, WSA, always recommend high availability. But with this, you are able to do web tracking, see where end users are going, different security reports, user reports. Again, that's something that's pretty prevalent. Want to see what Chris was doing it within the network, maybe within the last week or so. And you also have the ability to schedule reports. The nice thing about the different reports that we have here is that the reports are going to be the same across whatever you're able to get on the WSA. We also have the centralized management and reporting with the SMA. We are also able to do do centralized management for the WSA, and you can also do some reporting with the ESA side of things as well, or CES. And so you have that centralized report stage. You have those multiple WSAs deployed out in the network. You have that. A third flavor that we have for reporting is the AWSR centralized reporting as well. You can kind of think of it like a Splunk Lite, where you can have customized reports, group-based reports, and kind of dig a little bit deeper into that aspect. So you have different flavors there. Just kind of taking a look at reporting. This is pretty similar to what we covered in the previous slide. You are able to utilize API for reporting purposes. I will like to say that we did do a interface upgrade to the WSA. Those that are familiar and have been around working with the Ironport Solutions, WSA, there was a upgrade to the interface with 11.8 release or so. So make it a little bit more modern, not out of the stone ages. So this is again just kind of showing you the different reports that are available on the WSA from that aspect. Again, HTTPS is extremely important, as the majority of traffic in the web is utilizing HTTPS. So being able to see what's traversing through your WSA. Again, for the SMA, where you have your centralized management, so you can create your policies for your WSA deployment. If you want to upgrade those appliances, those all can be managed from the SMA, centralized logging, and being able to report on the ESA if you're leveraging that in your environment. The advanced web security reporting aspect of it, again, it's like a Splunk-like. This is really calling out the different aspects that it has. You can run different reports for multiple ASA appliances. If you have this integrated with the Active Directory, then you can do AD group based reporting, and you can do hybrid reporting with the WSA and Umbrella, depending upon what's happening in your environment from that standpoint. And this is just trying to show you some of the examples of the different reports and the different activities. So this is showing you the security activity for the WSA and Umbrella piece. And you can customize different dashboards so that you're able to see the information that you would like to see and help you understand what's going on. So moving right along with form factors and licensing. Depending upon the different use cases and depending upon the amount of traffic, there's so many different factors that goes into sizing out of a WSA, and there's a slide that I have for that calls that out. But various form factors, if there's a customer that prefers to have dedicated software, we have the S195, 395, and 695. But if they want to leverage the virtual options, we have the S100, 300, and 600, and that's something that can be deployed on Hyper-V, VMware, KVM, and AWS from this. There's also a S000B for POV and POC. So if you want to test something out in your own environment, you have the ability to spin it up and test out different applications or test out different scenarios for customers or for yourself. Just the newer generation of the appliances. We can see the different model numbers here. Something that you will see, notice that some of these models, like the models on the left, have an F on it. Those are going to be for your fiber interfaces. So again, depending upon the connection that you need in there, we are able to have the fiber connections into the network. And then you can see the improvements in hardware and also performance. For a second. This is giving you a synopsis or this is really showing you what the disk and memory and core requirements are for the various models for the virtual options. So again, if you're running this in your lab, you can use the top one, or if you need to test something else out, you now know what the requirements are for each virtual appliance. This gives you a snapshot of the virtual appliances a little bit more, a little bit granular. We can see this again, the number of cores, the speed, the memory that's associated with it, and then disk types that are going to be in it. Again, this is going to be for those that are leveraging AWS in their environment. So you have the headquarters or branch offices and small offices and the specifications that are associated with that. Again, as we introduce new models, we want to make sure that we are not only introducing new features, but we also want to make sure that we are making improvements from this. And this is a bit of an eye chart, and you guys can review this, but really want to call out as you move to the newer model, or you're talking to customers that may have those. You can speak to just the improvements that we've been able to make with the amount of memory, looking at the CPU aspect of it, and the hard drives as well. So if you want to utilize the centralized management for the SMA, we are able to be, again, physical or virtual appliances dependent upon customers' environments. We have the ability to do that. We do have an option for the POV and POC as well, sort of similar to the virtual WSA. This is taking a look at sizing the SMA appliances. Again, mileage will vary with anything, so it's important to utilize the right sizing guide for this. And there is a link in this, and there's also I know that there is a sizing guide for the WSA and ESA. It may be something for the SMA. But it's also good to, when you're working on these opportunities where a customer wants to SMA, to reach out to your local Cisco account team and kind of walk through, what you're thinking, just to make sure you're selecting this out correctly, and make sure it's not only meeting the needs now, but also perhaps for future growth. This is the same thing for the virtual appliances here. And we know that, again, a lot of customers are leveraging the cloud. So this is just looking at the virtual appliances, AWS, specifying the CPUs and speed and memory and other requirements needed to be able to sufficiently run the security management appliance. This is taking a look at the licensing model. So with your web WSA essentials, you have your URL filtering, reputation, application visibility, the advanced malware protection for web reputation and anti-malware, and then you have the premium bundle that gives you WSA essentials and the anti-malware, and then the last option is the WSA shield, where you get more, I'll say, bang for your buck as far as feature functionalities and being able to help safeguard customers. So you're also adding in the AMP piece in the cognitive threat analytics. And there's also the ability to add a la carte options if that's something that you need. Maybe you need to add more threat grid licensing based off of the number of samples that are being submitted. If a customer has a lot of submissions to threat grid, you're going to want to add on more sample packs that's going to give you more of that. Or if you want to increase the effectiveness, whether you're using the Sophos or McAfee, you could do those. So again, you have those different options. This is looking at the sizing guide, again, which is extremely helpful. This is looking at 11.8. You can see the security management in the advanced web security reporting tool. This is a link. Again, you all will have the PowerPoint, so you will be able to click these links. And then the online sizing guide is something that you can definitely leverage from to make sure that you are being able to pinpoint the appropriate appliance for it, whether it's virtual or physical. There you go in, you submit the request per second. You can also set the features that you want to enable for that, and it's going to give you a recommendation based off of the information that you're providing to that. So as much granular information that you're able to get from customers, kind of thinking about peak times and different things like that, that would definitely be monumental when it comes to sizing out the right appliance. This is giving you just a little drill down into this. Again, you can do ESA sizing, you have your WSA sizing. You're going to select the Async OS version of software, total number of users, and then your peak requests per second from that. And then, again, those calculations are going to be able to help you to size out the appropriate solution. We understand that certifications are extremely important. We have a lot of customers that are DoD, government, and different things like that. So utilizing cloud applications are not going to be possible. So we need to have something that is on-prem, and the things that you can see the certifications that we do have here with the FIPS, crime and criteria, and the DoD certification for our WSA. So again, different requirements are going to be different for different customers, and this is the way to go. Just looking at moving into the deployment, we have a couple different options. Whether you're utilizing the explicit forward mode, you're utilizing pack files, where the browser knows that it's being directed to something, or you can utilize the transparent mode where you can use WCCP to be able to send that traffic and do any kind of policy-based routing from there, and being able to send that traffic out to the WSA or the filtering. Looking at the integration piece, I'll warn you now, this next slide is going to be a eye chart for sure. We'll walk through it. Sometimes we say in architecture it has integration pieces, right? This is really speaking to that level of integration that we have with our WSA. And I'll speak to just a couple of highlights. Again, we can see over here to the left that WSA is able to talk to Cisco Cloud Lock, utilizing it, sending its logs over to it. We're also able to do any kind of logging reporting, utilizing the SecureX threat response that we talked about earlier. We're also able to, if you're having conversations and you have customers that are leveraging our Cisco TrustSec and utilizing ICE and utilizing the scalable group tags in there for segmentations, we're able to pull those tags into the WSA and being able to pull out policies based off of that. If you're utilizing the transparent mode, we have the WCCP. We can see that we can send, if you're utilizing FMC, the next gen firewall, ISGR, and you have that capability. So again, AMP is important. We're able to send that for file analysis and different things like that for management. We talked about the management pieces. So again, we have a wide variety of integrations with our WSA, whether it's traffic information being shared with the WSA or WSA sending that information out. So feature rich, you're only as good as the data you're able to get, and we're able to provide so much with this infrastructure, as you can see, and then the brains behind the operation with Talos being able to constantly update the WSA with signatures and the web reputation scores from there. So again, integration pieces, just talking about ICE and integration. If you're utilizing TrustSec, you do have the ability to pull in those group tags for policies. With 11.7, we added in 80 groups, support for 80 groups. So you can utilize either SCTs or your Active Directory groups with, that you can retrieve from ICE, and you can build a policy using both for utilizing both for policy creations if you so choose. ICE pick, utilizing that for passive identification. That way you have your single source of this. You used to have the CDA context directory agent that you can use for your mapping of users to IPs and being able to pull policies around that. Now you're able to leverage IcePick for that capability. With 11.8, being able to have being able to fall back to your Active Directory groups for access control policies. So again, being able to build on the previous successor of there and being able to have more flexibility with your policy, which is always important because you never want to get a call saying I'm not able to access different things, especially because it's coming from the CXOs of the companies or the higher ups of the company from that standpoint. And then with 11.8, VDI support, man. We know that a lot of customers are leveraging VDI in their environment. So with this 11.8, we added that support for Citrix and Microsoft Terminal Services client. So now you're able to see who's making what connections to what website, and then again being able to run reports on that, or being able to build granular policies on those shared resources, depending upon who's logged in and different things like that. So this is something that is proposed. There's not an ETA on this just yet, but we started this conversation talking about Umbrella. We're entering this conversation talking about WSA. As you can see, web is something that's extremely important, especially with the world we're in now and the conditions with the pandemic and different things like that. So this is again a work in progress, but we want to be able to have the ability to push policies from the Umbrella's secure web gateway to the WSA, so that you have consistent policies depending upon the architecture. We oftentimes see a lot of customers have a different hybrid solution, so there may be a use case where they're utilizing both. So we want to be able to have those policies sync up, and then being able to, again, understand the logs that are coming from the secure web gateway and the WSA, and being able to utilize that within the advanced web security reporting tool. So you have that consolidated reporting. So if anyone's coming to you and want to know what Chris has been doing in the network as far as web, or what Daniel was doing from that standpoint, you have that, or Ken, or whoever the case may be. Now moving into services. As you can see, we're winding down on this. So we do have the ability to add the Cisco software support for security. So you have your third-party web proxy appliances. Utilizing that support, we could help leverage that to help move different policies over to the WSA. So you do have that capability of leveraging that. So we have the advanced services for WSA. This is kind of walking through the different deployment sizes. This is give you a breakdown as to what's available for this. And if you all have any questions, here is the website, or here is the link for that. So that mailer that you can leverage for this if you are in need of these advanced services for WSA. And in summary aspect of this, again, we understand that web is the number 2 attack vector. We want to be able to have a layer of security that's going to help to protect the network and also provide visibility and control. Being able to stop zero-day attacks, leveraging the different features and functionalities that we saw in the pipeline of the WSA. Being able to have that granular control, allowing what files are able to come in, what applications are running, setting different bandwidth limitations. One of the other things that you're able to do with the WSA that I didn't speak of a little bit earlier is you're also able to do time-based policies, which is something that's pretty huge for customers. Oftentimes I'll have someone ask if that's something that's feasible. And then you have the flexible deployment, right? So you can have your WSA, your physical appliance, you can have your virtual appliances, you can have a combination of both running in the environment, providing HA for one another, just depending upon your use case there. You are able to deploy in the cloud, you're able to deploy using a wide variety of solutions. So if you're using AWS, utilizing KVM, VMware, different things like that, you have that flexibility. So the WSA is definitely still something that is in play. With this, I know that you're not going to get everything from this session. So here are some additional resources that you can leverage to get a better understanding of this. The demo flow is going to be provided in that sales briefcase that we provide the link for. But here you're being able to provide configuration examples. If you want to do a POV and lab license, here's a link for that. POV best practices, something that is extremely important, and just kind of being able to utilize the WSA best practices as well. So these are all very, very helpful resources to leverage when getting more familiar with the WSA. And so with that, I say thank you and appreciate you attending.
You know, we'll, just before everybody drops again, just a reminder, so make sure that you go out to the link that Lena posted in the chat, and make sure that you sign up for a validation slot. Again, that will close tomorrow morning. So just make sure that you go ahead and get that in, and we'll reach out to you and schedule something. It doesn't have to be immediate. Just want to start that communication so that we can get you guys validated. We've already done all the work to get to stage 2 and go through today's training, and as we'll go through do the demos and go ahead and move on to stage 4 and do the labs as well. And those are all defined out there in the briefcase. So anything you need for reference material is out in the cloud security briefcase that I showed earlier today at the beginning of the training. And we shared the link as well in the Teams room. So also, please fill out the survey again. Really helpful as we move forward and go ahead and plan the next virtual base tour that we'll have coming up. So thank you again, all partners and everyone, for attending today. Really appreciate your time and your partnership and your dedication to Cisco. And we'll keep the Teams room open if you guys have any follow-up questions. Please feel free to reach out. Thank you again, and thank you to everybody who helped out today with the Q&A, and of course presenters Chris and Ken as well. So thank you very much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.